Hello, hello, hello. Dallisa Hocking here, fifth generation psychic medium, and I'm bringing to you the latest episode of Famous and Fated. It's where we take a look at a mystery chart, and I have a brilliant astrologer with me today, the Astro Shaman, Benjamin Bernstein, and we're going to take a look at this mystery chart. What I want you to do is comment during the video and let us know, who do you think this chart belongs to? And then we'll reveal it a little bit later in today's show. But first, let me tell you a bit about Benjamin's work. You can find more about Benjamin at astroshaman.com. So he's written an Amazon #1 best-selling book, Instant Divine Assistance, your complete guide to fast and easy spiritual awakening, healing, and more. It's fantastic. You should definitely go pick up a copy if you haven't yet. I know I've been talking a lot about it in the last few months, so you probably already read it, but if not, go grab it. I'll include the link in the show notes below this video. Benjamin also hosts not one, but two podcasts, Awaken, Heal, and Thrive, and the award-winning This Week in Astrology podcast. Make sure you go subscribe to those wherever you listen to your podcasts. He also runs the Awakening Plus online membership, which helps its members awaken, heal, and thrive. He's also a 3-time Best Astrologer winner in Western North Carolina's premier reader survey. I mean, I'm just going to keep going, right? A couple more things I want to mention. He's done over 10,000 sessions and has a global clientele. He's presented at national astrology events and has devoted himself to over 45 years of spiritual practice. And the last thing I'll note is his greatest joy is helping others with his free instant divine assistance, also known as IDAs, the invocations. These simple yet potent techniques make spiritual awakening, healing, and more fast and easy. We all like fast and easy. His spiritual path has included, I'm going to ask him how to say this, Vipassana Buddhism, Peruvian shamanism, ayahuasca, and San Pedro plant spirit medicine, and of course the IDA invocation. So Benjamin, I am going to hand it over to you. Did I butcher the name of that Buddhist practice?
I've usually heard it pronounced Vipassana.
Ooh, okay. Well, I've never heard of it.
And when I talk about my invocations, I usually talk about the IDA invocations.
Yeah. Beautiful,
So
beautiful.
it's easier
Yeah.
than IDA. Yeah. That almost sounds like a weapon of mass destruction or something.
They're powerful. The IDAs are powerful invocations. So everyone go make sure you check the show notes below and grab a copy of Benjamin's book. So Benjamin, I know you're going to share your screen and pull up this Famous and Fated mystery chart. And I want everyone to start taking a look and listening to what Benjamin is talking about and include your comments in the video. We want to know who you think this is.
All right. So I'm going to give some pretty major clues right up front. You might or might not be right about who you think it is. What I can say right away is what I'm going to do is I'm going to name an attribute of the person, and it is a super famous person. It's almost inconceivable you haven't heard of this person. I'll go ahead and give the gender. He is widely recognized as one of the greatest comedians of all time and is also a award-winning actor. So let's just start with that. So in astrology, how would you find indications of comedy? Okay. Well, for starters, Leo is one of its keywords is the entertainer, and he has a Leo midheaven, and therefore to have that point of greatest, career, fame, reputation with the sign that relates to an entertainer, that certainly fits the bill for starters. Every planet has its form of humor, but the two planets that are best known for humor are Mercury and Jupiter. Okay, Mercury is known for wit, wordplay and things like that. And this person definitely had that down to a T. So here's Mercury in Leo in the 10th house, indicating a tremendous propensity for verbal wit. Mercury is also conjoined Pluto, which is a great empowerment agent of anything it touches. So Mercury is massively made more potent by the conjunction to Pluto. Also, I'll add another thing this person is known for: improvisational skills. He just, whether he was an acting student or professional, people just could not believe how incredibly well he improvised. and could do take after take after take after take every time, come up with something completely fresh and new. And so you would think, okay, if Mercury is about this kind of quick wit and such, how would we know he has such a vast range of being able to do this? Well, in his chart, Mercury is in a position which is called peregrine or unaspected. A planet is considered in this when it doesn't have any aspects at all to anything through Saturn. And if you look in this grid over here on the left, so just to be clear, what we're looking at, all these crazy colored lines in the middle in the horoscope are called aspects, and they are the energetic connections the planets and points make to each other, the relationships they're having, you might say. And that's pretty hard to understand, especially with as many planets and points and aspects as I use. But if you want to see the cheat sheet neat and clean, over on the left is this big old triangular grid, and you just find the planet and trace it. So Mercury, I got nothing until I hit Chiron. So Mercury is unaspected. It's free to do whatever it wants, unrestricted by any connection to any other primary planet. And so that's one reason why his improvisational skill is so off the charts. A very powerful Mercury in an angular house in the sign of the entertainer, getting juice from Pluto, and completely uninhibited by, being bogged down by connections to anything else. So that's one reason why his improv skill is so off the charts. Let me see, those are the main juicy things about the Mercury. Now, the other humor planet is known as Jupiter. Jupiter is more about the big belly laugh, physical humor, which of course this guy also was very good at. And his Jupiter is over here in Aries, a very powerful fiery sign. But what's so interesting about Jupiter is it's part of a pattern that we're going to come back to several times as we explore different things of his chart. Jupiter is part of a T-square, which is really the heart of his chart and the really main thing we're going to look at to understand his incredible talent. So what is a T-square? Well, if you remember your geometry, a right triangle has, two things across from each other, and then they make a right angle to something at the tip. So this T-square has Jupiter in Aries over here. On the other side is Neptune. Okay, and we'll get into what Neptune means soon. But what they square to is just amazing. The critical points here are Uranus and Mars together. Now, the Vesta's there, but Vesta is not so critical to our interpretation, so I'm not going to talk much about her. But basically, T-square, Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus, Mars. So already we see some reinforcement for Jupiter, the big belly laugh, fired up, energized with all this, strong energy by being in Aries, the fiery sign. So those are some hints as, this Jupiter having so many empowering connections for these other guys is one reason why the belly laugh comedian energy is there. So there's always going to be more support I could have given for each of these points, but we only have so much time, and I want to make sure we cover everything important. Dallisa, do you have any questions about any of this so far?
No, I agree. I think that the Jupiter and the Neptune and how it's all kind of pointing up to that top part of the chart is very, very interesting to me. And folks that are watching this that don't know anything about astrology or you're brand new to it, we all have all of the planets and the signs, represented in our chart. But the way that they fall in the chart and what they're next to or what they conjunct, it is going to be very different. So this chart is unique, kind of like a fingerprint that you have. Your chart is unique to you. And Benjamin definitely does consultations and readings and can look at your natal birth chart. But what you see represented on the screen, you will have the planets and the signs in your own chart, but they'll just be configured differently. Is there anything you want to add to that, just so folks know, we're all connected, we're all one, and we all have the same ingredients, just placed differently.
Exactly. I think that was a beautiful synopsis, and I think you nailed it. Well done.
Perfect. Let's keep going.
All right. So we see many of the reasons why we see comedian. Now, actor. Now, some people are great comedians, some people are great actors. It's a little rare to have both really so. And as I said, this guy won an Academy Award for his acting, numerous other acting awards, even when he was in more serious roles. Okay. So what is the acting element? Well, classically, Neptune would be the planet most associated with acting. Neptune is the shapeshifter, the chameleon. And by the way, one thing this guy was known for is his astonishing ability to take so many different kinds of roles on. He played, lighthearted, fun things. Later in his career, he played dark, more intense characters. He could play very serious, very outrageously funny. I mean, the guy was just unbelievable at how many different roles he could play so well. And so his Neptune in this T-square we're talking about is part of that. Another thing is where Neptune is placed. The 12th house, I should explain, there's something called the astrology alphabet, and there's 12 astrology archetypes. Aries through Pisces is how they're most normally thought of. But each of those 12 archetypes can be gotten to 3 different ways, through a planet, a sign, or a house. So the 12th archetype is Neptune. It's also the 12th house, and Neptune is smack there in the middle of the 12th house. Okay, so Neptune the technical term is Neptune is accidentally dignified by being in its natural house, number 12. So that just amps up the acting juju. So Neptune, of course, part of the T-square, all these critical planets are supercharged by being, connected to Neptune as well. In this context, Jupiter is acting as an amplifier, saying, Jupiter, I'm going to make even more expansive and big, that whole Neptune vibe for acting. There is another reason why his acting skill is so big. In that 12th archetype, I've mentioned Neptune in the 12th house, but the sign Pisces is also associated with acting. And his moon is in Pisces. And in astrology, the 2 luminaries, the sun and moon, are really big deals. Okay, they are usually considered the most important planets that tell you the most about a person. So his moon, his core emotional nature in Pisces, the North Node, this horseshoe, his destiny point, what he came here to do, is strongly indicated. Anyone's North Node is a big message, a big part of why were you even born? Why'd you bother to show up as a human? The moon conjunct the North Node in Pisces. By the way, in house number 5, which has that Leo flavor for everybody, again, that's back to entertainer. So we're starting to see some cool repetition of themes. So plenty of 12th archetype, 12th house Neptune Pisces to show why he's got the acting juju going on. Okay. Now, improvisational skills, that's yet a separate talent from the other 2. So what is improvisation? It's quick. It's on this, I mentioned Mercury, and the Mercury is part of why he's a great improviser, but I think the main reason, I should say, was because he is no longer with us. Okay. But we'll drop little breadcrumbs here and there as to think, who is this guy? But Mars conjunct Uranus is the main thing fueling his improvisational genius. Okay, Uranus is paradigm shift, shock, sudden, quick change. And in fact, there's a quote from his schoolmate, this gentleman studied acting at Juilliard. Okay, and one of his best buddies was Christopher Reeve, who played Superman so famously. Okay, and this is a direct quote from Christopher Reeve talking about when they were new students at Juilliard Acting School. Christopher Reeve said he wore tie-dyed shirts with tracksuit bottoms and talked a mile a minute. I'd never seen so much energy contained in one person. He was like an untied balloon that had been inflated and immediately released. I watched in awe as he virtually caromed off the walls of the classrooms and hallways. To say that he was on would be a major understatement. So that's, even when he was a student, he had this manic, wild, untamed energy. So that's Mars Uranus. Mars is act, make it happen, do it now. Uranus is electrical excitement, lightning strikes, just electrical, impulsive, radical energy. And I think, and when Mars and Uranus work well together, it's like you get the intuitive hit, the inspiration, and you act on it immediately. And this tight conjunction between these 2 planets, they're like about 1 degree apart, pretty much joined at the hip, is, saying that. And as a subtle note beyond that, they're in the sign of Cancer. What is Cancer? Emotionality. What is that moon in Pisces? Moon in Cancer, again, the same archetype. I hope I'm not bringing too many things in too fast here, but his ability to express emotion. Anyone who has seen, he's known for, whether he's doing a dramatic or comic role, he can bring tremendous pathos to the role. You can really feel his heart, and you can tell he's really feeling that so profoundly and deeply. And so he's got both the manic improvisational energy and the ability to be profoundly emotional. His sun, the core of his identity, is in Cancer. His ability to, as a human, feel others' emotions and then project them. the moon in Pisces, which is a tremendously empathic signature. He can feel everything. And I will say is this magic ability to transmit it out to others as well. In fact, the moon even connects to Mars and Uranus by trine, this easy flowing connection. So he feels the emotional sensitivity. He's tremendously empathic, and he can then radiate out through his genius, whether he's being funny with it or just immediately channeling the emotional sense of a situation. It's just an extraordinary setup for this. Okay. So again, I hope I'm not bringing it too fast here.
Yeah,
But
good.
the improvisational skills is, again, Mars Uranus is just, the absolutely the heart of why he could just think on his feet and just immediately come up with so much cool stuff. Also, he studied the craft of acting. He rehearsed a lot. He didn't just depend on his wits. He was a very serious student of the craft as well. That's Venus in Virgo. Okay. Venus is your creativity, in whatever way that shows up. And so Venus in Virgo says, I take my creativity seriously. I study the craft, I practice, I refine the art and refinement of it. And what's Venus connecting to? Well, first off, Venus is on his south node, which is the talents and gifts you brought in. So he probably had past lives where he got really good at crafting his creativity, suggesting by Venus conjunct south node in Virgo. And what's he supposed to do with it? It's in the 11th house. Bring it out to the people, broadcast it. Broadcast is a 9th house term, but 11th house is your peers, the people you're here to reach. And in this case, his community was almost the whole world, everyone who saw his movies or his other dramatic things that he did. And all tied together with all this other stuff with an aspect pattern called a wedge. Okay. So Venus and the south node are right across from the moon and the north node. And they both make these soft harmonious aspects to Mars and Uranus. So it's not a major aspect pattern, but that wedge is definitely there and tying all this, refined, precise practice creativity together with everything else. So I wanted to tie all that together. Some other interesting things. Now, here's another clue. One of the keywords for Uranus is the alien. And his breakout role was on a TV sitcom where he played an alien.
Everyone should get that, comments now. I think everyone knows who this is.
Did we just say it?
Yeah, let's just say it.
All right, I'll reveal.
I can even show the Wikipedia page.
Well, bang, I'm going to take this down.
I think everyone's going to know who it is.
Oh, hang on. Let me get this off so it's not on my screen anymore. I am having trouble with. So I'm having a technical issue here. Let me just...
Here, I'll show the Wikipedia page then.
Oh, I got it. It's Robin Williams.
Okay. So yeah, I'll pull this up real quick. So here we are with his photo, in case anyone has lived under a rock over recent decades. But yeah, so born July 21st, 1951, and died August 11th, 2014. So yeah, I think everyone kind of figured this one out. But okay, so here's the chart again. Yeah.
Okay.
So
all right. So
he played an alien.
Yeah, Mork and Mindy. Yeah. So now I want to bring out a couple of other subtler things. I mean, we've hit his major things. If we have time, I'll go into some more subtle things about him. So he didn't own this chart immediately. In fact, his Wikipedia says that he was a quiet child, according to his own admission, who did not overcome his shyness until he became involved with his high school drama department. So what is shy about this chart? Well, and astrologically, we start naturally in our moon as a child and we grow into our sun as an adult. Okay, it's kind of a transition. So his moon's in Pisces, and until the Piscean drama part became activated, because Pisces is the natural sign of the actor, Pisces can be very withdrawn and shy and in your own interior world. And that was him, his moon in Pisces, until the drama department unlocked the 5th house the moon was in, and all these other parts of the chart start coming online. So I found that little note quite fascinating. Also, he was inspired by Richard Pryor, who in his comedic work openly talked about his addictions and challenges. And Robin Williams, he did stand-up throughout his career. He didn't just do movies. He was always doing stand-up, sharpening his wit, making sure his craft was strong. And he talked openly about, he was addicted to drugs, alcohol, cocaine at various times. And that's also a darker manifestation of that 12th archetype, Neptune, 12th house, Pisces. So, he took that 12th archetype, both dark and light, as the brilliant often do. And he talked about how difficult, I didn't copy this quote, but he talked about how incredibly hard it is to be a stand-up comedian, which he spent a lot of years doing. And a lot of comedians do turn to drugs and alcohol to numb out some of the pain and profound insecurity of that kind of lifestyle. Let me see what else I got here for you. Yeah, I actually hit most of the key points I wanted to really focus on. And so do you, Dallisa, have any questions about anything I've covered here? Oh, you know what? There's one other factor I did want to cover if we have any more time. So Robin Williams also did a number of very serious roles. I mean, in 1 Hour Photo, he played it like totally straight. And like in Dead Poet Society, he really had that gravitas as the teacher. Okay. So where in this chart do we see that kind of maturity and, grand, responsibility energy? It's Saturn. Okay. So how does Saturn tie into all this? Well, if we go to the grid, we see that Saturn is almost exactly sextile his sun. Saturn's at like around 28 degrees Virgo, and the sun is at 28 Cancer. So there's a sextile, a harmonious, strong aspect between Saturn, responsibility, maturity, work ethic, and the core of his identity, the sun. So that's where we see some of that going. And one thing he was good at is he was so good at playing traumatized people in a Good Will Hunting, and other roles. He could really play a wounded person really well. And this brings out a really tight square in his chart between Saturn and Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer. Chiron and Saturn are nearly exact. I mean, within 5 minutes of orb, 1/20th of a degree, Saturn and Chiron are exactly square. So he was able to bring out that, feel the trauma, bring it out in his characters. And also Chiron is the mentor and the healer. And he had roles where he played the psychologist, he played the wisdom figure and was able to embody the high side of Chiron into his persona as well. So he used that Saturn-Chiron square to good advantage as well. Let me see what else Saturn's up to. Those are the main things. I believe I've pretty well covered. I will just mention one other thing. I just looked at one time who are the most popular actors ever, film actors, and most of them had strong Cancer. I've been saying here Neptune, Pisces are like the things associated with acting, but I discovered, and it makes sense, if you have a lot of the energy of Cancer, that's emotions. And what is an actor's primary responsibility? To make people feel emotions. And no sign does that better than Cancer. So his Cancer Sun, his Cancer Mars, the zany Uranus, even in Cancer, was a big deal in his being able to feel and transmit his emotions to his viewers.
Interesting. No, I love everything that you've shared. It's great. I have one thing I'd love your perspective on, and I don't want to overgeneralize anything here because everyone is unique and their soul's plan and their natal birth chart is unique to them. But there have been reports that he had an ailment or was faced with some medical issues towards the end and committed suicide. Is there anything, like when I hear you talk about this, I'm like, oh, he felt deeply, right? You've got the Pisces energy, the Cancer, you've got Neptune in the 12th. Like when I hear all of that, I'm like, whoa, he was feeling things maybe even more deeply or in a more profound way than maybe most people. And I don't know if that would, have somebody lean into escapism a bit more, because you even mentioned the addiction earlier. So is there anything that you kind of see that would point towards maybe end of life choices?
Yes, and it's back to Saturn Chiron. Okay. So
Okay.
Chiron is a wound. He had it's something Lewy disease. I'm sorry, I didn't focus so much on that part of the chart. But yeah, in fact, I remember that part of the Wikipedia bio where he kept saying, he felt his brain going, and he was not diagnosed properly until after his death, when they actually did an autopsy and checked his brain and found this whatever Lewy disease it is, just all through his brain. And he was slowly going insane, and he knew it, and he couldn't stop it. And that's why ultimately he killed himself, because he was in so much agony, losing, this critical asset of being able to do what he does and even function as a human being. He figured, man, this life is just no longer worth living. I can't help others through my craft. I can't even function myself as a human being. I'm done. He said, let's move on to the next stage. I don't blame him a bit. But Saturn Chiron square, and he may have also, it didn't talk about his religious or spiritual, he may have understood that he wasn't just a one-shot human. He may have known, I am a soul that moves on, and this is one lifetime, but there will be much more after this, when the soul moves on to whatever's next. I'm purely speculating here, but someone with a Pisces moon and Pisces North Node and all the Neptune stuff might have some spiritual awareness as well. Okay. But yeah, Saturn Chiron could be interpreted as, okay, Chiron is a wound or trauma, a very serious thing. Saturn also rules things that happen later in life. It's the delayed thing. So that's kind of and again, that's just about one of the very strongest aspects in this whole chart, to say that there might be some kind of significant ailment, that becomes really serious later, could be considered a core prediction there.
Ooh. Fascinating. I love your interpretation of his chart. I think you've helped us to understand him a bit better. I saw a while back a story about Christopher Reeve and when he was paralyzed and was in the hospital, and how Robin Williams, dressed up and came and visited him in the hospital to help cheer him up. And when I heard that story, I'm like, that feels like the core of Robin Williams, this compassionate, deeply emotionally connected soul. And we saw a lot of the brilliance and the genius, publicly. I just think that he was a really deep individual based on what I've gathered, and your interpretation just helped to fill in some of that story. So thank you.
And ironically, what he did for Christopher Reeve, he played a role. He played Patch Adams, the doctor who dresses up like a clown and goes and cheers the kids up in the hospital too. So art imitates life, or vice versa.
Absolutely. What an interesting person and chart. And I appreciate your talent in bringing this chart to life and helping us get to know Robin Williams just a bit better today. Just a reminder for Benjamin's work, make sure you go over to astroshaman.com. And again, I'll put the link in the show notes below, as well as the link to Benjamin's book. So make sure you go check that out. And for any information on my work, head on over to SpiritAndSpark.com. Benjamin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I love doing these charts with you, Dallisa. Thanks so much for having me on again.
It's fun. We'll see you next time.